this guy, MrBeast, never says a serious thing that's relevant to, you know, everyday problems that people are having, and like hardly ever says anything that is relevant to the daily struggles of people in his life. And he comes out and he's talking crap about Trump now with the tariffs. And I mean, I think people are really sleeping on like how important of a thing this is. And Kevin O'Leary said something really epic today. He said that we should be not only have 100% tariffs on China, we should have a 400% tariff on China because of how detrimental this has been. So I want to show you that. But first, let me show you what exactly MrBeast said in this article, because this is about chocolate. He's mad that his chocolate's more expensive to produce, but you know, forget about the decimation of the middle class, I guess. So MrBeast is attacking Trump's brutal tariffs and claims it'll be way cheaper to make his feastable chocolates, who people hate, by the way, overseas. So let's see. MrBeast is the latest high-profile figure to attack President Trump's punitive tariffs, which he says will make it way cheaper to produce his ethically sourced chocolate brand Feastables overseas. I don't know why they label it like that, ethically sourced chocolate. So, ironically, because of all the new tariffs, it's now way cheaper to make our chocolate bars we sell globally, not in America. The YouTuber, whose real name is Jimmy Donaldson, wrote on X on Tuesday. Donaldson noted it would be cheaper to produce his popular candy abroad because, quote, other countries don't have a 20% plus tariff on our COGS. Feastable products are designed in Donaldson's hometown of Greenville, North Carolina, and produced in Peru and the U.S., according to the brand's website. While Donaldson claims his brand pays farmers a living wage and uses fair trade certified beans, he admitted that the random price hike was pretty brutal. Quote, "We'll figure it out. I feel for small businesses, though, could really be a nail in the coffin for them," he wrote. All right, what a retard MrBeast is for saying this. Like, he's saying this is going to be bad for small businesses. Like, have you ever wondered why the middle class has been stagnant for the last 20 years? It's because China's been bending us over. Like, I don't think I have to show you the clip of Pelosi. Everybody's been showing that this week, of Pelosi literally saying the exact same thing that Trump is saying right now. You know, between us and China, China gets more jobs out of our arrangement. China gets more money from exports out of our arrangement, and our middle class and our companies can't keep up with what China does because China has slave labor, and we can't produce things here because of that. So why do they get that protective tariffs and we don't? Like, the thing was clearly set up by people who either don't understand it or want to see the downfall of America, because like this is straight up extracted wealth from us, and it's skyrocketed China's fake economy. I mean, look at a chart of China's GDP growth from the year 2001. It takes off like a rocket. I mean, I showed you that last week. I'll show you that in a second if you want, but here we go. Is MrBeast 26? Jeez. The 26-year-old's chocolate brand makes up a significant portion of his revenue at his company, Beast Industries, driving half of the company's revenue in 2024, making $215 million. That's crazy. I've literally never seen a person say that they like his chocolate. Like, I've seen countless videos of, like, even videos where he's doing collabs with people who have big channels. You could see the look on their face when they taste the thing, and like next to a like normal chocolate bar, and like it looks like they hate the thing. So the sweeping reciprocal tariffs, which hit U.S. allies and adversaries alike, went into effect just after midnight and are in addition to a 10% baseline levy imposed earlier this month on Trump's so-called Liberation Day. While Trump has claimed the U.S. was already taking in almost $2 billion a day on tariffs, the plan has roiled Wall Street and fueled fears of inflation and a recession. If deals are not cut with foreign nations, Trump plans for the new tariff to remain in effect until he determines that the threat posed by the trade deficit and underlying non-reciprocal treatment is satisfied, resolved, or mitigated. According to his executive order, that's from the New York Post. So just for the record, before I show this Kevin O'Leary clip, Trump already he walked it back a bit. He gave a 90-day extension to some countries that have been cooperative. And China came out like an hour or two ago saying that they would be willing to negotiate if they felt like the deal was fair. So, this is already moving in the right direction. Here, let me toss this over to Kevin O'Leary and tell me what you think of this. Here we go.
4% tariffs in China are not enough. 104% tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here. Never has an administration
400% tariffs. What would that look like?
Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well, hold on a second, Kevin. Well, I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
Short-lived. There will be.
But what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive.
400% tomorrow morning, Xi's on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
So there you go. There's that. And I'm going to show you this Pelosi clip too, because I bet a lot of you have seen it already, but it's important to show that this is like a very straightforward common sense thing. So it's bizarre that people are acting like it's the craziest thing right now. Like, we're actually in dire circumstances.
Right now, we have a $34 billion trade deficit with China, the 1995 figure. It will be over $40 billion for 1996. Since the Tiananmen Square massacre, this figure has increased 1,000%, from $3.5 billion then to about $34 billion now. In terms of tariffs, I think it's interesting to note that the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%. Whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%. Is that reciprocal? On exports, China only allows certain industries into China, of U.S. Industries into China, and therefore only 2% of U.S. exports are allowed into China. On the other hand, the U.S. allows China to flood our markets with a third of their exports, and that'll probably go over 40%. And it's limitless because we have not placed any restriction. In terms of jobs, this is the biggest and cruelest hoax of all. Not only do we not have market access, not only do they have prohibitive tariffs, not only are our exports not let in very specifically, but China benefits with at least 10 million jobs from U.S.-China trade. The president in his statement requesting this special waiver said that China trade supports 170,000 jobs in the United States.
Insane. And that's in 1995. So, that's exponentially worse today. So, I mean, look at this. Look at the growth of GDP. That doesn't even make sense. So they go from, what is it? 1 trillion in the year 2000 to 17 trillion by 2021. And now look, they're flatlining. So I think they peaked already, but all this growth is from that. Like, it was just like a big wealth extraction. So we got sold out, and I mean, it's crazy that nobody's spoken about this in 25 years, but I mean, thank God that we're doing it right now. I'm totally critical about Trump, over on Trump about some things, but this one is spot on, and like we need to go full steam ahead with it. So here's the current status of these things right now. Let me see. We got, so I mean, the day started off with Trump increasing, or no, China threatening 84% tariffs, jumping up from 34%. But this is like kind of changing minute by minute. And I saw that China was considering negotiating. I saw that come out like a couple hours ago. But what was it? That was in response to us putting out a 100% hike on China. So there's a lot back and forth right now. But we had Richard Warner on the podcast today, and he was talking about what percent of China's exports the U.S. represents. And, they calculated it's like 9 to 15% of China's exports. But you factor in Singapore, South Korea, Japan, Europe, the number gets up to like 60%. So I think that, us alone, like our consumer base is essential for China. But, if we could get Japan and South Korea to stop buying from China, within reason, tell them to stop buying certain things from China that they could handle, their supply chains can handle. I think we could put a lot of pressure on China that way. Another funny thing about this to me is that like you got the libertarians freaking out too. Like Rand Paul comes out and says that it's an absolute fallacy that the U.S. is getting ripped off by a trade deficit. So, I've always had disdain for libertarians because I think they're foolish in a lot of ways, where they say things like we shouldn't have borders, we don't need a government, this and that. Like, believe me, I despise the government. But if you didn't have a government, you just have like the biggest gang in control of society. So, they're wrong on tariffs too, because look at this. So, absolute fallacy. U.S. is getting ripped off because of trade deficits, says Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul said Tuesday in CNBC's Squawk Box that it was an absolute fallacy that the U.S. is getting ripped off because they have a trade deficit with another country. Paul said, the whole debate is so fundamentally backwards and upside down. It's based on a fallacy, and that fallacy is that somehow in a trade, someone must lose. That's somehow when you trade with someone, there's a loser and someone's taking advantage of you, and China is ripping you off or Japan is ripping you off. It's absolutely a fallacy. Every trade that occurs in the marketplace is mutually beneficial. Bull freaking shit, Rand. Like, how does it benefit our workforce when you have actual slave labor in another country, and that puts our production workforce out of business because it just doesn't make sense to pay people in America to produce things when you have slaves, actual slaves in other countries that you could pay 50 cents an hour. So how's that not a threat to us? How's that not like China was like a desolate farm country 50 years ago. Now they look better than America in a lot of ways. So you think that's like organic natural growth? No, it's because we didn't have access to their markets. They had access to our markets, and they had the ability to steal our technology. They had the ability to, underpay people, underpaid, like the impoverished people there, like where they have to put nets on the sides of buildings so people jump off, they get caught by the net because of how bad the conditions are. So like, even if we do have reciprocal tariffs, the workforce thing is a whole nother thing, because you're still going to have that disadvantage where it's difficult to get companies to stay here when you could pay people so little overseas. Like, even if we do have access to the markets that we currently don't have access to, then like that's still going to be a big problem. And that's like a real weird argument, or real weird dilemma, because I hate minimum wage. I think it's a bad thing. I don't like unions a whole lot, stuff like that. And then making the argument of like, oh, you have to make sure that people get paid a certain amount here. Not saying that, but I'm saying that we shouldn't have to compete with third world countries that pay slave wages, because that's not good for our workforce. And if you talk socialism and like the erosion of a nation, like eroding the middle class is the fastest way to do that. So Paul goes on to say, If you have a free society and I trade with you, if you want, and by the way, this is from Breitbart, if you want to sell me your coat and I give you $200 for it, we both agree to it and we're both happy with that trade. No American consumer trades China. They trade with Walmart or they must buy something from China, but they individually buy something they want and they make a decision. The trade is always a win-win. All right, but Ron, why should we give China access to our markets when our companies don't have access to their markets? I haven't heard a good answer for that yet from anybody. Like, I don't know if Ron Paul's aware of this or not, but I don't know if it's just like something that libertarians are fixated on, that they don't like tariffs. But I haven't heard anybody give a good answer for why it's okay for a country to have access to our markets, but it's not okay for us to not have access to their markets. Now, you can artificially do this by accounting between two countries and say, oh, trade deficit, look at this trade deficit, but I have a trade deficit with my grocery store. Paul added, the people who employ me, if I work for Corvette and they employ me, they have a trade deficit with my labor. What? They buy my labor and I never buy their cars. So you can have this artificial counting and it makes it look like a bad thing, but you have to ask yourself, is there a good or bad trade? You know, it's a bad trade, Ron. A bad trade is when all of our important stuff is made in a hostile adversary, like when our essential medication and our technology and weapons to some degree, when that's made in a different country, yeah, that's a bad deal. And when our industrial base gets gutted, and industrial base is the most important thing when you're in a war. Like, why do you think we're 3 years behind in production capacity for, weapons for another country? Like last year, I remember seeing all the big defense contractors, like they were way behind in orders. They didn't have the materials or the workforce or the capacity to keep up with demand for this one tiny war. Like, imagine if we were in an actual serious war. They always give out these estimates where if we were in some type of conflict in the South China Sea, that we would be out of ammunition in 2 weeks. I mean, do you think having an industrial base would help with that or no? Because, like, essentially right now, the only thing that we export is dollars. So, like I said, I've never been a fan of libertarians, and I'm even more annoyed with them right now because the only argument I've heard people say about tariffs being bad is that it's inflationary. Like, yeah, of course it's going to be somewhat inflationary in theory because our company saved 90% production costs by having Chinese slaves build things for them instead of American citizens. So yeah, company profit margins are going to get squeezed. All right. Like, at first, it's going to be more expensive here, but we're going to have higher wages on average and we're going to be able to lower taxes because of it. So I'm stoked that Trump is holding strong with this. And I think it's going to work out. Let me see if there actually was something from China. I saw a raw news alert saying that China agreed to have discussion. Let's see. Open to negotiation. 6 hours ago, Trump raises rate on China to 125, pause on reciprocal tariffs on other countries. Oh, yeah, and the stock market shot up today for a little bit because he did the pause on, I think, 90 countries. It's so funny. The stock market's so stupid the way it is right now. Like everything else is fine just because he said tariffs are going to be on pause for 90 days. So, like, whatever happened to the stock market being based on the future, not the current. So, normally they would say that the stock market's like 6 months ahead of what's going on today. So what, a 90-day break in tariffs is going to change the outlook for the next 6 months, or are they literally just based on what's going on today? I officially opened up the Forbidden Book Society on Minnect, on the Circles tab in Minnect. So I just want to build a club of sharp, curious people, and that's what we're doing there. So if you are interested in something like that, check out the Forbidden Book Society on Minnect Circles.